The sweeping reforms that took place in the early years of the Meiji era are known as the Meiji Ishin. In English, restoration is often used, but in Japanese the word Ishin means that everything is renewed and transformed. True to its name, almost every aspect of the nation, politics, education, culture, transportation, was completely modernized. Within just a decade, Japan underwent such dramatic change that it hardly seemed like the same country. At the end of the Edo period, political power was returned from the Tokugawa shogunate to the imperial court, but the transition to the new Meiji government wasn't exactly smooth. The last shogun, Tokugawa Yoshinobu, had assumed to maintain some control within the new government, but his plan fell apart. Frustrated by this, forces loyal to the shogunate clashed with the new government's army in Kyoto in January 1868, sparking a civil war, the Battle of Toba Fushimi. As the shogunate forces began to lose ground, Yoshinobu fled to Edo. The new government planned to attack, but thanks to negotiations between Katsukaishu from the shogunate side and Saigo Takamori from the government side, Edo Castle was handed over peacefully, without a fight. After Edo Castle's surrender, Katsu moved with the Tokugawa family to Shizuoka. There he helped former samurai make a living by developing tea plantations. To this day, Shizuoka remains Japan's top tea-producing region. The core members of the new government came mainly from the Satsuma, Choshu, Tosa, and Hizen Han. In June 1868, leaders from Satsuma and Choshu ordered the northern Han, like Sendai and Yonezawa, to attack Aizu and Shonai, which had sided with the old regime. The Aizu and Shonai had been following orders from the shogunate to suppress insurgencies by Satsuma and Choshu, so old grudges lingered. Though Sendai and Shonai signaled their willingness to surrender, the new government rejected it. When Sendai and Yonezawa pleaded for leniency, they were turned down again. Frustrated, they and other northern Han formed an alliance to resist the government, but were eventually defeated by November. In December 1868, the remnants of the shogunate's navy rebelled, refusing to hand over their warships. They fled north with about 3,000 troops, including Sendai samurai and former Shinsengumi members, and occupied Hakodate, establishing what became known as the Republic of Ezo. However, in June 1869, the new government forces crushed them at the Battle of Hakodate, bringing all of Japan under their control. Jules Brunet, a French officer sent as a military advisor, actually resigned from the French army to join the fight alongside the former shogunate navy. He's said to have inspired the character portrayed by Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai. This entire series of internal conflicts with the new government forces is known as the Boshin War. The Shokansha Shrine was originally built to honor the new government soldiers who died in the Boshin War. It was later renamed Yasukuni Shrine, and ever since it has continued to enshrine those who fell in each of Japan's wars up to the present day. Even while fighting the Civil War, the new government pushed ahead with major reforms. In April 1868, Emperor Meiji issued the Charter Oath, which laid out the government's basic principles. The Charter Oath was similar in spirit to Prince Shotoku's 17-article constitution from the Asuka period. It reflected Japan's ancient idea that politics should be done collectively, with everyone involved in governing. It also established the custom that the era name, Nengo, would change with each new emperor. In July 1868, the capital's name was changed from Edo to Tokyo, Eastern Capital. On July 25, 1869, all Han officially returned their lands and people to the emperor, and Izo was renamed Hokkaido. In August 1871, the government abolished the Han and replaced them with prefectures. The Ryukyu Kingdom was initially incorporated into Kagoshima Prefecture, and its debts were taken over by the government, turning it into the Ryukyu Han. Later, the Ryukyu Han was abolished, and Okinawa Prefecture was established in 1879. By 1888, the current system of 47 prefectures was mostly in place and remains largely unchanged. In September 1871, Japan signed an equal treaty, the Sino-Japanese Friendship and Trade Treaty, with the Qing dynasty, reflecting both countries' desire to counter Western powers. In December of the same year, the government sent a mission to the United States and Europe. This delegation, made up mainly of high-ranking officials and students, numbered over 100 people and spent 2 years visiting and studying in various countries. Though they aimed to revise the unequal treaties, they didn't succeed at that time. During this mission, Germany's Iron Chancellor, Bismarck, told them bluntly, "It's good that you're talking about international law, but a weak nation gains no rights just because it adopts it. Japan must become strong. Powerful nations follow international law when it benefits them, but they'll break it and use force when it doesn't." This harsh lesson showed Japan the true nature of international politics. While the mission was overseas, the government set up a caretaker home government to keep domestic reforms on track. They focused on building the foundation for a strong nation that could stand equal with the West. In 1872, a new family registration system replaced the old status-based registers, recording households regardless of class. The rigid class system was reorganized into Kozoku, Shizoku, and Heimin, granting freedom of occupation, residence, and interclass marriage. This system makes it possible for people in Japan today to look up their direct family lineage in official documents, going back as far as the late Edo period. A modern school system was established to provide universal education, with elementary, middle, and higher schools set up nationwide. Japan's first railway opened between Shimbashi and Yokohama, and the Tomioka Silk Mill, later designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, was founded as a government-run facility. A massive fire that destroyed the Ginza district in the same year led to new urban planning, and British architect Thomas Waters redesigned Ginza with gas lamps and horse-drawn carriages, giving it a Western look. In 1873, the lunar calendar was replaced with the solar calendar, setting the year at 365 days. The government introduced conscription, drafting all able-bodied men aged 20 and above to create a modern army no longer based solely on the samurai. The old rice tax system was replaced with a modern tax structure. Japan was rapidly embracing westernization, but that didn't mean it was simply copying the West wholesale. For example, when it came to food, the Japanese, who traditionally didn't eat beef, created dishes like sukiyaki, where beef is cooked with unique Japanese seasonings. Another example is anpan, a sweet bread roll filled with traditional Japanese red bean paste. Both of these were invented exactly during this period, which is called the Civilization and Enlightenment era, and they remain hugely popular among Japanese people today. After domestic political reforms had mostly been settled, the caretaker government started to look outward. They planned to establish modern diplomatic relations with the neighboring Korea, which was still closed off from the outside world. However, Korea rejected Japan's attempts, seeing the newly westernized nation with suspicion. Some in the caretaker government began pushing for military action to force Korea to open its doors, a policy known as Seikenron. But the emperor put off any decision until the mission returned. When the delegation came back, they strongly opposed the idea, arguing that Japan couldn't afford to get involved with Korea. Having seen the power gap between Japan and the Western powers firsthand, they believed it was vital to focus on strengthening Japan from within. For the government, Seikanron was partly seen as a way to redirect the frustrations of the former samurai who had lost their status, to keep their anger from turning against the new regime. But when it was rejected after a month of debate, the key Seikanron leaders resigned in protest and continued to challenge the government in their own ways. Eto Shinpei returned to his hometown of Saga and led the Saga Rebellion, but it was crushed by government forces in 1874 and he was executed. Itagaki Taisuke, meanwhile, launched the Freedom and People's Rights movement, calling for reforms to limit autocratic rule and create a system where people could speak out democratically in a national assembly. In the same year, Japan dispatched troops to Taiwan in retaliation for the 1871 incident in which 54 Ryukyuan sailors were killed by indigenous people. When Japan protested, the Qing dynasty claimed it wasn't responsible because Taiwan was beyond its effective control, so Japan treated it as unclaimed territory. After the campaign, Japan negotiated with the Qing, and with British mediation, the Qing paid compensation and recognized Japan's action as justified, clarifying that Taiwan belonged to China and the Ryukyus to Japan. While suppressing the freedom and people's rights movement, the government knew it eventually needed a constitutional system and a national assembly, as promised in the Charter Oath. So, without yet setting a date for opening the National Assembly, the government hurriedly decided to set up the Genroin Senate to deliberate on bills and the Daishinin, which served as the Supreme Court. In May 1875, Japan renegotiated its borders with Russia. While the 1855 Treaty of Shimoda had set Itorafu Island and everything south of it as Japanese territory and Urup Island and everything north as Russian, Karafuto had been left as a shared zone. In this new treaty, Japan gave up its claims to Karafuto in exchange for full control over the Kuril Islands. In 1876, growing anxious about the need to strengthen its defenses in the face of Western imperial powers, the Japanese government dispatched the warship Unyo to conduct a survey off the coast of Ganghwa Island. During this operation, the vessel came under fire from Korean shore batteries, sparking an incident. Instead of demanding reparations from Korea, Japan sought to establish formal relations and open the country to trade, which led to the signing of the Treaty of Ganghwa. Unlike Japan's treaty with Qing China, this agreement closely resembled the unequal treaties that Japan itself had once concluded with Western powers. Since the Saga Rebellion, impoverished former samurai had risen up in various places. What angered them most was the 1876 order banning the wearing of swords, a huge blow to samurai pride. When their stipends were cut off, frustrations boiled over, leading to uprisings. The largest of these was the Satsuma Rebellion of 1877, led by Saigo Takamori, who had returned to Kagoshima. But the samurai forces were no match for the new conscript army trained in Western tactics. Saigo took his own life and armed revolts died out. These failed uprisings fueled the nonviolent freedom and people's rights movement once again. In the midst of this, a scandal broke out when former Satsuma domain members tried to sell government-owned facilities to each other at unfairly low prices. When freedom and people's rights groups found out, they erupted in protest. To calm the heated movement, the government agreed to open the National Assembly 10 years later. Once the opening of the National Assembly was set, Ito Hirobumi, who was already a central figure in the government and the former mission member, went back to Europe to study constitutional systems. In December 1885, he established the cabinet system and became Japan's first prime minister. Meanwhile, the liberal factions formed political parties in preparation for the 1890 launch of the Diet. In 1889, the Constitution of the Empire of Japan was finally promulgated. It had been 13 years since Emperor Meiji had ordered a thorough study of foreign constitutions and the drafting of Japan's own unique constitution.